Oh, here you are, face to face in this trashy bar. Another glass and I am going places. Makes me laugh about the irony of everything.
Who didn't squee at that scene? Young-sae and Sung-hoon never really had any real reason not to get together very early on in the drama, except for the fact that Sung-hoon had an overdeveloped sense of loyalty to his adoptive brother slash boss. So we had to wait 6 episodes to get that first kiss, and it was worth it. They made it worth it. Also, there's something particularly great about K-drama kisses, where the woman leans in and kisses the guy first, kind of experimentally, which, establishes enthusiastic consent. And then you have the guy pull her in for a deeper kiss. Yes, there is elements of sexism in how that plays out, but I don't care. It's better than how kisses are done in most industries, is how I see it, especially for first kisses, because at that point, you don't know each other. You don't know what the other person is okay with. Are their feelings that deep for you? Are they actually okay to kiss? So it's like a back and forth, a question and an answer. It's good writing. It's good drama and just pure K-drama crack.
아니 왜 여기 있어요?
So after that really most excellent kiss, you have the next episode, episode 7, which starts with Sung-hoon and Young-sae having spent the night together. At this point, we don't exactly know if anything happened. Young-sae wakes up in Sung-hoon's bed and she's not in her own clothes. So that's a clue. And she tries to recall what happened the night before. She can recall making out with him in his apartment, and that's it.
미쳤어 진짜!
She can't remember anything beyond that point. And then Sung-hoon comes in, Young-sae gets flustered and says, let's forget anything happened. And then she leaves, leaving Sung-hoon really quite confused because he kind of thought they were a thing at this point. Boy changes his mind real quickly. What happened to your loyalty? And then leaving Sung-hoon confused, Young-sae goes on her day and later on meets up with her bestie, Shin-hari, and explains to her that she was embarrassed because she couldn't remember the moment of their consummation.
근데 그런 중요한 순간을 어떻게 기억 못할 수가 있냐고.
And she didn't want Sung-hoon to know that because she was afraid that he might think that she gets drunk and sleeps with men very often, and that this might hurt his pride because how dare his great moment not be memorialized. This entire line of reasoning was making me squirm throughout the scene because first, she's worried that he's going to think that she's slept around. Are you in the 90s right now, woman? And how does that even track? Like, just because you couldn't remember what happened because you literally blacked out, he's going to think you do this very often? Doesn't it imply exactly the opposite? That your drinking capacity simply isn't that great? Possibly because you don't drink quite this much? I don't know. I don't see how she exactly got to that conclusion. And then the second one, where she's afraid that he would be humiliated, his pride would be hurt if he realizes that she didn't remember them having sex, because it has to be memorable no matter how drunk your lady is. And seriously, if it had to be that memorable, maybe wait till your lady isn't that drunk.
내가 마음 접자 했는데.
Which is actually something I really want to get into right after this. So she explains this to her bestie, and her bestie nods along, and Shin-hari's like, yeah, that makes total sense. And then later on, much later, she is ducking and hiding from Sung-hoon because she doesn't want to face him until he comes up to her and says, I was in earnest. I've liked you from that first moment at the convenience store. Apparently, he also saw flowers blooming behind her. So, true love first sight. And Young-sae finally finds the courage to run after him and tell him, hey, I didn't mean what I said before. It's just that I was very embarrassed because I couldn't remember what happened. Do you know what I was expecting at this point? I was expecting Sung-hoon to turn around and be like, well, that's because nothing happened. Honestly, I was watching all of this stuff and completely expecting that is where this entire sequence of events is going to go because the girl blacked out. I expected him to say nothing happened and then kiss her. And then, while they're both sober, they can like go at it and that'll be great. But he doesn't. Instead, he says,
그리고 앞으로 다시 잊지 못하게 해줄게요.
what? The problem is that every time I like a drama as much as I like Business Proposal, I start imbuing the creators of the show with my own social, political, ethical beliefs. I start thinking that we see the world in the same way. And so when they put in a dialogue or a scene that clearly shows that they don't see a problem in something that I absolutely see a problem in, it's very jarring for me. I'm not saying it's the end of the world, but it's deeply jarring. This was deeply jarring for me because clearly the show creators didn't see what was wrong with basically implying that you had a relatively sober guy, and you see this in episode 6. He has like one bottle of soju and he's completely sober, whereas she is completely sloshed with like 6 bottles in front of her, and she can barely walk straight. And she kisses him outside on the pavement and he kisses her back, and that's really sweet, but you don't expect this guy to then take her home and then have sex with her, because that is predatory to an extent. No matter how enthusiastic she seems, you don't know this woman. You really don't know this woman. You don't know her choices, her triggers, her boundaries. And she is not in a sober enough state of mind. And if you drink, you understand that there are levels of sloshiness. You go from absolute sobriety to midpoint sober sloshiness where you can still make decisions, and then you're completely sloshed, at which point everything seems like a good idea, even if it's not. And I just thought it was accepted common sense in all romance novels, movies, dramas, that the sober partner does not take advantage of the drunk one. It's almost like don't drive while drunk. The same principles apply. Don't have sex with your severely drunk partner, because, and especially when it's the first time, when you're in the initial stages of a relationship, you don't know what they're okay with. To an extent, they are cognitively compromised. They are not able to think things through. They are not able to verbalize their thoughts properly. When you're severely drunk, that's one of the first things that happens. Your thought processes become slower. And so it's harder to verbalize the things that make you uncomfortable, the things that you don't like, and it's not okay. It's not okay, is my deeply personally held belief. So for the show to basically say that Sung-hoon, this upright, ethical, moral guy who has clearly got like some really, strict set of principles, for him to basically take advantage of this girl, as happy as she is with the outcome, that's great for Young-sae, but he didn't know that she would be, is the point. It's possible for a girl to change her mind after making out with you, I don't know, for 2 hours. It's possible for her to change her mind. And if she is so compromised because of alcohol that she can't think straight, this is not a good time to test whether she's really okay going all the way.
나 성훈 씨랑 잤어.
I really like Business Proposal. It's the kind of crack watch that I haven't had in half a decade at this point. I look forward to each and every episode so much. After this episode aired, I didn't want to immediately criticize it, because that is the kind of bias you have towards things that you love. You don't want to immediately point out the things that they do, because you're not sure that your point of view is right. You want somebody else to ratify it. And you want somebody else to say that, hey, that thing that happened, that was not cool. But I went online and not a single person was criticizing it. Instead, there was nothing but adoration for this couple. People were really happy. They were sharing clips. And I shut up. Usually I wouldn't, but I just shut up because I thought maybe I was not seeing this correctly. Till I spoke to my co-host Saya of our podcast, and also a few other friends who brought it up. And then I felt brave enough to voice my own thoughts. And when I started talking about it, a couple of points came up. The first one was a lot of people kind of just assumed that Sung-hoon was just as drunk as Young-sae, which is why they didn't feel discomfort with the whole situation, because both of them had basically just gone and had wrong sex, which is actually not that big a moral quandary, because really you don't have a sober partner more in control of the situation at that stage. But that wasn't the case. You could clearly see that Sung-hoon was completely sober, but also had just like one soju bottle in front of him, whereas Young-sae had like a lot of them. And she was also deliberately getting herself drunk because she was just really not coping well with her previous bout of embarrassment. That was related to PTSD that she got from being secretly filmed by a creep. So the woman was not just drunk out of her mind, she was also reeling from, a situation that had just happened and had definitely traumatized her. This is just getting worse the more I talk about it. So the number one counter argument that Sung-hoon was just as drunk, and this was two drunk people making, with poor decision-making abilities, just going and having sex, is, that doesn't work. The second counter argument to my point of view is basically that Young-sae is enthusiastically consenting to everything. She doesn't have any hesitation, and that she would have climbed him any moment given a chance before that. Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. Young-sae is clearly very happy to go home and have sex with Sung-hoon, except for the fact that just because somebody likes you and really wants to sleep with you doesn't mean that they are agreeing to every step of the process. I'm not saying that if Young-sae was slightly less inebriated, she wouldn't have been super happy to go and sleep with him. She probably would have been. You can see by her reaction the next day, she's clearly quite happy that they slept together. So I'm not saying that anything bad happened. I'm not saying that at any point Sung-hoon was taking advantage of somebody who didn't want to sleep with her. That is not what I'm arguing. I'm simply arguing that if these people were not fictional, and if we as an audience to a piece of fiction didn't know for absolute sure that Sung-hoon is a really great guy, one, but also two, Sung-hoon and Young-sae are OTP. They are the ultimate perfect pairing for each other. If we didn't know this, if these two were just two people interested in each other, whose relationship may or may not end up in, a long-term thing or marriage, whatever. Maybe it's just something that lasts for a few days. They aren't OTP. They are just two normal human beings. If that was the case, and you had a girl show interest in the guy by kissing him, and then he kisses her back, and then cut to them having slept together and the girl has no memory of it, that's a deeply uncomfortable situation. The girl doesn't remember what happened between them. The girl doesn't remember what they did. Sex isn't just like a switch that, there are a lot of different things you do, a lot of boundaries that you cross, a lot of intimacies that happen. Why am I doing a sex ed class in my K-drama video? It's a very complex, intimate, and complicated thing, which is why you need to be absolutely sure that your partner is very, very okay with everything that both of you are doing. Because you have to remember that both partners probably had previous experiences. They can have trauma from previous experiences. There may be other emotional burdens that they have that comes out during sex. You don't know any of these things. It's not about whether or not she's saying yes or no. It's about her not being in a state to explain what she's saying yes or no to. I'm not saying that I'm not going to keep on watching Business Proposal. The creators deserve every due for having created a cracktastic show that is superbly entertaining. But I have to admit that my enthusiasm for the show, how much I was looking forward to the next episode, has taken a severe hit. and that glow that you have when watching a drama you really, really like, where you're happy to suspend your disbelief and you are perfectly okay with not examining too hard some of the tropes that are inbuilt into the premise of the chaebol dating his employee. That glow, that luster has also faded. And now, of course, I'm seeing the cracks more than I want to be seeing them. For instance, I couldn't help but cringe a lot at how much Shinhari was putting herself down when thinking about whether she's worthy of dating Sang Tae-mo. So, yeah, so the rose-tinted glasses have been smashed, and I dearly wish they hadn't been. And that's all I wanted to say in this video. Thank you for watching.